But first up tonight, claims that the Trump administration is a gang of Russian operatives are starting to look sillier day by day. Russian diplomats say tonight that relations are at their worst since the Cold War. The Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, is in Moscow trying to get Russia to abandon Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. He struggled, however, even to arrange a meeting with Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, Congressman Brad Sherman of California is on the Intel Committee. 2 months ago alleged that ties between Trump and Russia were Watergate 2.0. Congressman Sherman, thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
Good to be with you. I'm senior on the Foreign Affairs Committee, not on the Intel Committee.
Rather,
look forward to talking about these issues. Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
So you have said for a long time that there are clearly ties between Russia and the Trump campaign and now administration, and you've said it pretty floridly. And yet today, you mocked the Trump administration for not being able to get a meeting with Vladimir Putin. So which is it? Is Trump a puppet of Putin, or are they at odds with each other in a way that's so appalling that you're making fun of it?
Well, last time I was on the show, I said it was clear that Russia hacked Hillary. Whether Trump was in collusion with Russia has yet to be established. That's why we need an independent commission. But clearly, these revelations have put the onus on the Trump administration to bend over backwards and prove that they aren't in league with the Kremlin. And, of course, this terrible action by Assad, I mean, he kills people every day by the hundreds. Right. But now to use chemical weapons make it impossible for Trump to ignore that.
But that's actually not what you alleged. I mean, you at one point said the Russian government doesn't need lobbyists in the United States, the implication being they already had them in the Trump administration. Again, you called this Watergate 2.0. You didn't just say the Russians hacked the election, whatever that might mean, but you implied that they did so with the active cooperation of the Trump people, and your story just fell apart based on the actions of the last week, hasn't it?
No, obviously Flynn is gone, and he was particularly close to the Russians, but one would expect, with all of the bright light that has been put on the Russian-Trump connection, that there would be an administration trying to bend over backwards. And then they have to deal with events, and the events are that an air base was used to gas civilians, and the Russians are all over that air base. If they didn't know, then they're not operating very effectively as a military force. They probably did know, and so any president has got to respond to that.
But I'm
as to Watergate.
Wait, but you're saying that the Trump people had to bend over backwards to accommodate Russia, but now they're attacking Russia and pushing Russia to distance itself from the Assad government.
Tucker, my comment was that because there's so much attention to whether or not they colluded with Russia during the campaign, they now have to disprove that by being even a little tougher against Russia than they might otherwise be. So you're saying that
you and your fellow Democrats pushed the Trump administration to unnecessarily bomb Syria to divert attention away from your theory that Trump and Putin were in bed together?
We shined a light on the Trump-Russia connection. How Trump responded to that, and I can't imagine that he would bomb Syria for political reasons, but if he did, that was not our idea. Our idea is to have a wide, clear-eyed view of Russia, whether it's their occupation of Crimea, their interference in eastern Ukraine, or their support for this
I'm confused as to what you're saying. I mean, if you're saying that politics, pressure that you applied on Trump played some role in his decision to bomb Syria, then you can't possibly support that bombing. You would be horrified by that if you thought that. If you thought it was even possible, you would be calling out the administration for bombing Syria, and instead you're complimenting them. So now I'm completely confused as to what you're alleging and why.
The Trump administration bombed Syria for a number of reasons. Whether one of those reasons was to prove to some element of the country that they weren't too close to Russia, we won't know. The Trump administration says they did it in order to punish Assad for his use of chemical weapons. Defense of the Chemical Weapons Convention is an important objective of the United States, one that deserves at least some limited action, but certainly not an all-out war. That being said, our objectives in Syria are threefold. Protect the Syrian people and hopefully provide them with good governance. Second, crush ISIS. And third, in importance, but easiest to try to achieve, is to stand up for the Chemical Weapons Convention. And it is that third element that was partially achieved by these bombing raids.
But, I mean, let's just take 3 steps back. For months, you and fellow Democrats have waged an orchestrated campaign against this administration on the basis of the claim that they were too close to Russia. They were doing its bidding. I did not mishear you or any of the dozens of guests you serve with who have said that on this show. Now we have conclusive evidence that not only is the Trump administration not doing the bidding of the Putin government, but is acting against the aims of the Putin government. So isn't it time just to admit, you know, we were wrong on that? Well, why not just admit that? Because it's so clearly true.
Well, first, Flynn was very close to Russia. He's gone.
But they fired him.
Second, they did. And they fired him in part because of the attention that Democrats put on his involvement with Russia, his speaking fees and payments, not speaking fees, but just plain cash payments from the Erdogan regime in Turkey, etc. As to whether Trump took this action for political reasons or for good or for foreign policy reasons, I don't know. You'll have to ask him.
Okay, but you're, again,
but it is appropriate for Democrats to shut.
You're dodging the question, which is,
I'm not.
Isn't this clear evidence that the Trump administration is not only not doing the bidding of Russia for whatever reason, but is acting against some of Russia's most vital interests? It's a really simple point and a simple question, and will you just acknowledge that?
The failure to sanction many of the entities that should be sanctioned for Ukraine, the failure to provide more assistance to the Ukrainian government, those are actions that are pro-Russia. But clearly, the Tomahawk missiles against Assad was a step that I think almost any president would have taken under these circumstances.
Okay, so
but it was an anti-Russia, anti-Iran action. The Trump administration is not a the Trump administration may be too close to Russia, but that doesn't mean that any Democrat would say that they are.
Yeah, they're not acting
like a nation
that's too close to Russia. In fact, we look like we're moving toward war potentially. Finally, there were apparently chemical weapons in Syria. They're supposed to have been removed. 4 days ago on the radio in California, you said that you knew that under the watch of the Obama administration, 95% of Assad's chemical weapons, sarin included, were removed from that country. You couldn't know that number with any precision, so far as I can tell. Why would you say something like that?
Why don't I give you the precise number? 2,600,000 pounds of toxic chemical warfare agents were removed from Syria and destroyed. Now, whether that's 95%, 94%, or 96%, the precise number, weighable and determinable by international authorities, is 2,600,000
But you don't know that.
pounds.
But that's an immaterial number because it doesn't get to the proportion. That could be 1% of their available chemical weapon stocks. You don't know. And the truth is, none of us knows. And so why not just admit that? The Obama administration said, Susan Rice said on television, we got all of the chemical weapons, and they didn't. I'm not blaming them for the Assad's attack, apparent attack last week. I'm just saying they lied about it. Why not just admit that?
They clearly didn't lie about it. They thought they were getting all. We don't know the exact amount that was retained or what was manufactured or provided by Iran or Russia since then. But we do know that under the Obama administration, 2,600,000 pounds of toxic agent was removed. That's a precise number and an important number, because you got to ask how many hundreds of thousands of people could have.
Sarin last week. I mean, they're not celebrating.
Yes,
it's an immaterial number, right? Because they're still using chemical weapons.
Well, it's not immaterial when you realize that this raid could have been far worse. Now, no matter what happens in a disaster, if you're one of the people who die, that disaster is as big as it could possibly be. But the fact is that just because a line of action isn't perfect, an action that removes from Assad 2,600,000 pounds of chemical weapons begs the question, how many hundreds of thousands of people could he kill if he had been able to retain that sarin gas?
Well, I guess that's the glass half full approach to it. Congressman, thanks a lot for joining us. I appreciate it.
Good to be with you.